Okay, so to continue, we are going to move on to gender roles. If you remember right on the last one, it said that there are certain historians that believe that men and women were more equal during the Paleolithic time period because both men and women were involved in getting food for the family. I do not tend to agree with that. I think that probably males were still a little more dominant because they were the ones who did most of the hunting, which brought in the big food. Women are going to be at a disadvantage and stay to the gathering mainly because they are mothers, because they are nursing children and other things. They have to stay closer to home. And so, therefore, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the historians that argue this. By the way, can we prove this? No. Why not? Because this is prehistoric era, the time period before writing. We have no idea really whether or not this is true. And so people can have disagreements on some of these things. But your book argues that men became more dominant as they took on the crop and the herding jobs, and women then are going to take a secondary position. I think that they probably had that before that time period. But I can't prove it. So we'll just keep going. All right. So the new age is going to come about once they develop a new material for making weapons. When people first started studying these people, they determined the ages based upon the weapons that were used. In this time period, people learned to mix copper with tin, and they realized actually the very first weapon used, or the first metal used for weaponry, was copper. But if you've ever worked with copper, it's very malleable, flexible, and that doesn't make for a very strong metal. And so they finally realized in the Bronze Age, which started around 3000 BC, that when you mix that copper with tin, it's going to make bronze. And bronze is a much stronger weapon. You can see several bronze weapons there on the side. You've got swords, you've got an axe tip, and other things like that. In the other picture next to it, you can see a couple of bronze coins as well. So they started using these types of things. Then the Iron Age is going to come about. Iron is even stronger than bronze, and that's going to happen around 1200 BC. So you're going to have various new ages come about. Now, culture is something that we study from the earliest time period, and culture is very simply a people's way of life. Now, civilization is a little bit more than that. It is a complex culture where many people share a number of common elements. And there are 6 different characteristics of civilization that we're going to talk about here. One of the reasons why we don't talk about civilizations during the prehistoric era is because it's missing a key element or characteristic of civilization. By the way, if you look at this picture, do you know what civilization we're talking about? I bet you do. That's the Egyptian civilization. I'm going to use a lot of those in the coming pictures. Okay, so the 6 characteristics of a civilization. First, you are going to have cities. Now, during the Paleolithic era, there were no cities because everyone had to continually move and were hunters and gatherers. It's not until you get agriculture that you can get the cities. If you remember, this is Çatalhöyük right there. Second thing, government. You need to have some kind of more complex government than you just have one leader who tells everybody what to do. Now, most of the early governments were monarchs where you have kings who inherit the power to rule. Once again, you see a picture of an Egyptian pharaoh in the next one. The third characteristic of a civilization is religion. Every single one of these early civilizations have a religion in some way, shape, or form. Now here you have a picture of the Egyptian god Ra. Ra was the sun god, which is why it looks like a sun. Okay. The next characteristic is social structure, and almost every single civilization that we study has the same social structure. At the top, you have priests and rulers. Now, if you have priests at the top, what does that say about their civilization? It says that religion is very important. Then you have government officials and warriors. In the middle, you've got farmers, artisans, and then at the very bottom, you have slaves. Okay, so I am about to run out of time, so I'm going to have a part 3 on this unit. So I will see you again in part 3.